Wear white at my sister's wedding? See what happens, Mom. My sister's original wedding plans got cancelled due to booking conflicts and price issues. Long story short, our parents were originally going to pay for the wedding but backed out the moment they realized how much it actually costed. But eventually, my sister and her fiancé decided to say, forget it, and had a much smaller, much more affordable wedding. I pitched in to help with the cost. We kept the guest list to 10 people, including the bride, groom, and the officiant. Now, my mom has a history of making events all about herself. For instance, she arrived 15 minutes late to my high school graduation. She didn't even show up to either of my sister's graduations. When it came to my college graduation, she didn't like my major, so she refused to go. She even hid my sister's car keys so she couldn't attend either. As a result, my 17-year-old sister had to take public transport alone for hours to my graduation because she didn't want to disappoint me. And she even wanted to be the first to hold my kids. Long story short, we all knew she would likely cause some trouble at my sister's wedding, especially since she had made some homophobic comments about their relationship before. Since our dad isn't in the picture and the small party size, there wasn't a traditional bridal party. So, I ended up taking on multiple roles as the father of the bride, brother of the bride, and maid of honor, all in one. One of my responsibilities was to keep our mom in check. But of course, my mom made sure that wouldn't happen. In the weeks before the wedding, my mom would repeatedly try to show up to my sister's house unannounced to help out with the wedding preparations. I had to take her to my place and calm her down. She even tried to call our caterers and whatnot to change the date, but luckily they checked with me before actually altering any elements of our booking. In any case, she did all she could to mess with the wedding in the weeks leading up to it, but things got 10 times worse the day of. Go to part 2. Wear white at my sister's wedding? See what happens, part 2. My mother was being incredibly possessive and dramatic about my sister's wedding, but I managed to keep her in check until the night of the wedding. But then, with literally 6 hours to the big moment, she managed to surprise us again. That night, my wife and kids stayed at my mom's house, while I stayed with my sister. The plan was for my wife to drive our kids and my mom to the wedding since my mom can't drive. On the morning of the wedding, my wife sent me a photo of what my mom planned to wear. Can you believe it? Not only was my mother's dress white, but it looked very similar to my sister's wedding dress. My wife suggested she wear something else, but apparently, that was the only nice outfit my mother claimed owned. And to top it off, she locked the bedroom door so my wife couldn't find her something else to wear. When my wife told me about this, I told her to inform my mom that there was a change of plans. We would pick her up in the nicer car I was driving my sister in, so she could make a grand entrance with us. My wife agreed, so she and the kids left at the original time. But as you can guess from the title, my sister and I never picked up our mom. During the drive to the ceremony, I filled my sister in on what our mom had done. She wasn't surprised at all because she knows our mom's antics. She did suggest that we call her before the ceremony began, just in case she realized her mistake and wanted to join us. We tried calling, but she never answered or called us back. So, we just carried on with the wedding. Obviously, our mom is furious, but we had an amazing time without her drama. I know some people might see our actions as harsh, but I thought you might find it interesting or enjoyable to hear live. Don't let anyone ruin your special day. Today I made a customer cry. I work in photo finishing and I was helping a friendly lady who wanted prints off of her phone. She mentioned that she recently lost all the photos on her phone, so she has to get pictures from the last few weeks printed, in case they disappear again. I found it odd that the photos would just disappear but the phone was still working. She insisted, despite being a technology illiterate, she wasn't stupid enough to accidentally delete them. She also said that her phone had a memory card in it. I checked the phone and took the SD card. I put the card into one computer, and it didn't show up at all. So I tried our Windows PC instead and it told me the disk was unformatted. Her cheap off-brand Android SD card literally corrupted the disk. At this point I was pretty sure the pictures were gone, but I didn't want to crush her hopes yet. Since Windows was able to see it, I thought there might be a chance. So I took a deep breath, formatted the disk and threw it into our recovery software. To my surprise, not only did it work, I was able to recover 90% of the photos and video on that card. The lady had been waiting for her prints, so I waved for her to come around to my computer and take a look. She looked at the photos on the screen and literally started bawling. Like full-on ugly cry. It was all her most important pics. Her grandson's grand, her dog that had passed away a few months ago, family trips, years worth of pics that weren't backed up anywhere besides in this card. In the end, she bought a new micro SD and I gave her a DVD of the pics at no charge. After paying, she ran behind the counter and gave me a big hug. Today, she came in again with a handwritten letter and a little cake from one of the best bakeries in town. She said I was the best customer service she'd ever had. I'm home now enjoying the cake. Today has been a good day. I was forced to eat at fancy restaurants for a month. Many years ago, I got put on a work assignment for months that required me to travel to New York City and stay every Monday to Friday. I was assisting a company manager with a project and my hotel was near his regular office in the theater district. If you are not familiar, the theater district is heavily built for tourists. Restaurants are generally kind of fancy and expensive. There were not any quick and cheap options for dining in that area. The company had a generous meal policy of up to $40 meal for travel expenses. I did use that for a bit, but the food got to feeling too indulgent and kind of ridiculous given it was an extended assignment. Also, I was working really long hours and did not want to go sit in restaurants. I just wanted to go watch TV and sleep in my room. So after the first week or so, I instead went to a grocery store on Monday night. I bought some basics for cereal, sandwiches and snacks, and some frozen meals I could microwave for lunch in the office. It cost about $60. I then took a few cans of soda from my hotel fridge to make room for my weekly food purchase and returned them before checking out at the end of the week. And that was it for food costs, with an occasional meal out here or there. I did the same for the next 4 weeks, and submitted my expense report at the end of the month. You know where this is going. A lady from accounting called, and refused to reimburse my expenses because $60 is more than $40, the max allowance for a meal purchase. I explained that it covered 5 days of food but was told it didn't matter. I then spent the next month trying all the food in the neighborhood. There were not any cheap options. I went out to eat a few mornings, lunch whenever I found time, and dinner absolutely every day. I could have bought a few installments of groceries, but the once/week shopping convenience was part of why I'd wanted them. It had also seemed wasteful for me to go out for an expensive meal every night for long-term travel, but now I'd been told that was preferred by accounting to my grocery bills. The next month, I got a call from my NYC manager asking how I'd run through more budget every week of the month than the entire month before combined. I explained the grocery situation, and he thanked me and hung up. About 10 minutes later, that same lady from accounting called me to tell me they'd pay my still not reimbursed grocery bill and any going forward as long as the daily amount averaged for the week was under the aggregate meal allowance. I happily returned to a more reasonable diet. My hearing aids are not earbuds. I am hard of hearing. I was 17 and had just started working at a smallish cafe run by a well-known family in our area. I knew some people who had worked there before, and they told me for the most part the owners were great, very chill, and laid back when it was slow, and normally weren't bad about breathing down the employees' necks. Their oldest daughter, who also helped run everything, was the one who was very peculiar, and we'll call her Karen. I am officially diagnosed with a hearing deficiency, not enough to be considered deaf, but I do have to wear hearing aids. My first day before we opened, my coworkers asked me if they could do anything else to help me out, and we eventually started talking about the hearing aids in general. While talking about everything I mentioned, they had Bluetooth capabilities so I could play music through them. Not that I would, but I could. Karen had been in the room at the time, and said you can't wear those, no earbud policy, and tapped on the policy's paper on the wall. I protested, explaining they were hearing aids and not earbuds, and that I wouldn't be using them to listen to any music while I was working. Her reasoning was I didn't need them because I wasn't considered fully deaf, and I was doing this to get around the no earbud policy, directly quoting when I said they could play music. I can't wear them? Okay, let's see how this goes. So I placed them into the case in my bag and started my shift. I couldn't understand my trainer, couldn't hear the customers, couldn't hear when orders were called to be sent out. Things were going extremely slow. A couple of warmed pastries burnt since I wasn't able to hear the timers. Simple sentences had to be repeated multiple times with people basically yelling at me just for me to be able to piece a few words together. I guess the cherry on top was me ignoring one of the owners when she tried speaking to me. Karen came up to me when I was working with the pastries and tried addressing me about it, until she finally realized that I actually couldn't hear her after she had repeated herself 5 times, and I didn't even look in her direction. By the end of that shift, I was allowed to wear my hearing aids, no questions asked. Parent says it's not our business what her son does on the community garden, so we let him get up to his neck in shit. On our community garden, we get teams of kids from the local school to come to help, and it's often the case that they turn up on a Saturday morning as well. They're almost entirely well behaved, which is a good job as there's not a lot we can do about bad behavior beyond a stern voice. There's this one lad who came for the first time last week. Don't know him, but we made him very welcome. He only lasted half an hour before storming off in tears after his third telling off for spinning round and round holding a tool and then letting it fly off at head height. This morning his mom came with him. I saw him point out my friend and me, but he didn't ask to join in, so after shouting hello we let them be. After about 10 minutes he started wandering and my friend shouted to him, "Don't go round behind the greenhouse, mate. It's not safe round there." Well, his mom had obviously been waiting for this because she went 0 to 100 in 2 seconds flat, demanding to know, do we own this garden? And if not, what business is it of ours where her son goes? We explained we just want him to be safe, and she replied that she's quite capable of taking care of that herself. Thank you. Fine, on you go. Off he went, exploring behind the greenhouse, which is not safe because it's the compost heap, which is very unstable, and the muck mound, which is a giant pile of horse manure we get delivered every autumn. By the spring the inside is all nice and rotted down, and the outside is hard, crusty, and less strong than you think. After a minute there was a crunch, a squeal. And I think we did very well to drag him out without saying "I told you so" or breaking into guffaws. He was absolutely black from chest height downwards, and although well-rotted manure doesn't smell really bad, it is very thick, and sticky, and slimy. His mum grabbed him without a word and they headed for the gate. He started bawling as soon as the surprise wore off. My friend said, "Would you like some bin bags to spread out in your car?" and to her credit she did say thanks when he handed them over. I wonder if we'll see them again next week? My appointment was cancelled for being 5 minutes late. I guess I am 72 hours early instead. I got a summer job at my university. The job was working for professors that I had worked with before, and they asked me last minute to teach a summer workshop to 9th and 10th graders. This was less than 2 weeks before the camp starts, and I have a bunch of paperwork to do first, including clearances that say I can work with kids. One of these is an official FBI check for which they need my fingerprints. I needed to do the physical fingerprinting right away in order to get the result in time. Luckily, I was able to book a fingerprinting appointment for that Friday, which would be just barely enough time to get the result. That Friday I catch the subway to campus and it's atrociously slow. I did plan for this, since the subway here is always behind. However, the subway apparently broke down that day. Anyway, I end up slightly late getting to campus, so I literally run to the police station and enter the front room at exactly 5 minutes after my appointment time. I know this because, as I stepped through the door, I felt my phone buzz with what turned out to be a "your appointment has been cancelled" email. I speak to the security and cop behind bulletproof glass inside, and I learn the appointment was in fact cancelled after he checks my confirmation number. Apparently, they are automatically cancelled if you're not checked in within 5 minutes. Obviously, this is outrageous, but I'm usually a patient guy. I ask if I can book a new appointment. That's no good since it would have to be Monday or later. So I grab a coffee from across the street and return to sit inside the police station, to try and solve this with some Googling while I slip into a more and more frantic state of frustration. I can't find anywhere in the city that can fingerprint me before Monday. But here's what really pushed me over the edge. While I'm sitting there, at this point 30 minutes past my appointment time, someone else comes in for fingerprints. She shows up 5 minutes early. They take her in immediately, and she's out before her appointment was even scheduled to begin. The entire thing took her about 2 minutes. I point out to the cop behind the glass as politely as I can that clearly someone could see me right now because her appointment is already over. Why can't I have the current slot? But the cop insists that since my appointment was cancelled, my registration info was no longer in the system and I can't be seen today. That's when the idea comes to me, and I confirm with him that showing up early is not a problem, because they would have my appointment and registration info in the system. You see where I'm going with this. So I quietly sit back down and take out my phone. About 10 minutes later, I calmly approached him again and say, "Hello, I have a new appointment to be fingerprinted. I'm about 72 hours early." I have never seen such an exasperated sigh in my life. But he checked my new confirmation number, and everything was in order. Within 10 minutes, I was done and waiting for the subway. I dumped this girl 4 times during our relationship. Now, I work for her mom. In high school, there was this girl named Lucy who was absolutely obsessed with me. I didn't like her much, to be honest, but she was one of the hottest girls in our school and had the best body I'd ever seen. This led to a cycle of me hitting Lucy up on Snap, us connecting, me entering into a relationship with her to tap that, me tapping that, me losing interest, and me breaking up with her. Between cycles, Lucy would have other flings, but I guess none of the guys ever stuck because she usually came back after a while, though sometimes it took a lot of texting. Anyway, our relationship was firmly over by the time high school ended, and I mostly forgot about her. Lucy sent me one text, that I'm pretty sure she sent while drunk, telling me how much she hated me and how I took advantage of the fact that she was in love with me, but I didn't care. I sent her back a shrug emoji and never thought about it again. However, at a work party, my boss was introducing everyone to her daughter, only for it to be Lucy. We were both shocked when we saw each other, and her mom was surprised to see that we knew each other. However, Lucy just said, "Oh yeah. I know Nick. This is Nick, Mom." For reference, my actual name is Nicholas, and my boss, Lucy's mom, always called me by my full name, but the way she said Nick made me realize that Lucy had complained to her mom a lot about me, especially since my boss immediately started giving me the stink eye afterwards. Now, I'm thinking that I should probably apologize or something, but I have no clue what to say. Is this something I should even bring up? Should I go to Human Resources and report this? What do you think? This theory ruined Avatar, The Last Airbender for me. I had to suffer, so now you do, too. Spoilers included, obviously. Basically, I was with my girlfriend last night, watching the greatest show of all time when we got to the first episode of the final book of Avatar. This is after everyone thinks that Aang is dead, and Zuko has returned to the Fire Nation. The scene that sparked the theory goes like this. Zuko storms into Azula's bedroom and yells at her. Azula gets out of bed and deflects Zuko's rage, they argue, and then Azula gets back into bed. I didn't blink at this, finding it pretty continuous with what I had seen in the show thus far, but my girlfriend gasped at the end, pausing the show. I asked her what was wrong, and she told me to just look at the screen, which was paused on Azula in the bed. The lighting in the room made it so that her face was in the dark, but her cleavage, which was sort of out because of her pajama robe, was fully in the light. However, this was still a kid's show, so I said they probably just did it by mistake. My girlfriend then made us rewatch the entire scene, pointing out all the times where Azula touches Zuko, how she walks around him in a circle, whispers into his ear, puts her hand on his chest, only to go back to bed. My girlfriend then shared her ridiculous theory with me, that Nickelodeon was trying to imply a deeper, more taboo relationship between Azula and Zuko in this scene, and, y'all, I'm still reeling. I rewinded that scene 3 more times and all I can think about is the way Azula stretches in front of Zuko for no reason, and the way her body is unnaturally posed, obviously with the light source falling on her cleavage. Search up Avatar bedroom scene and watch it yourself. Please tell me if my girlfriend is going insane or if she's onto something. I need to know.
How a mattress is ruining my relationship of 10 years. My husband Howard and I were high school sweethearts, and we've both had marriage in our minds since we traded promise rings at 14, but, 2 months away from our wedding, I feel like our relationship is being put to the absolute test. Basically, we moved in together 2 years ago, right after graduating from college. We bought a nice king-size mattress, and the bed was our first major purchase together as a couple. For that reason, it holds special value to me. Naturally, we both picked our respective sides on the mattress and have kept to those sides for the past 2 years. However, Howard is a pretty big guy, and it's only natural that his heavy figure is wearing down his side of the mattress more than me. His side sags down in the middle, and it's really uncomfortable. On the other hand, my side of the mattress feels as springy and firm as the day we purchased it. Howard started complaining about this, and, as his birthday present, he asked me if we could flip the mattress so that our sides would switch. I was taken aback by this and said no, given that birthday presents don't involve long-term discomfort for the giving party. Howard said that if I truly loved him I would care enough to switch sides of the mattress so he doesn't get back pain, or I would splurge on the money necessary to buy him a new mattress. But mattresses this size are really expensive, and I think it's way too early to replace after just 2 years. We've come to a total standstill over this, and with Howard's birthday nearing, I have to actually make a choice over what I'm going to do with this mattress, but I feel like it's not my problem, given that it's his fault he's so fat in the first place. But should I just suck it up and switch? What do you think? I think I'm raising a psychopath. Please help. My son is only 13 years old, but he terrifies me in every way possible. I always knew that he was a little different. He has always had a very sharp understanding of how to get what he wants, and I can count on one hand the number of times I've been able to actually say no to him. The few times my husband and I managed to refuse him, he started screaming so loudly that our neighbors called the police. Another time, he simply stared at us for an hour until we were so unsettled we finally gave him what he wanted. My son's demeanor can also change so quickly, so easily. He is the sweetest boy in the world when he wants something from me, but once he realizes that I've caught on to him, his expression will change like he's possessed. The most terrifying incident happened recently, when I was called into my son's school because he had been caught stealing. As the teachers accused him of the act, my son broke down in tears, swearing up and down that he was innocent and that he couldn't possibly fathom why they were accusing him of a crime he didn't commit. Finally, after I, too, was getting agitated with the teachers, they showed him a video proving that he clearly did steal. Instead of being embarrassed or stunned like a normal child, my son, with the tears stopped in a single second, just said in a terrifyingly calm voice, "So you had proof, but you wasted my time anyway?" He's been suspended, and I need to find a way to punish him, but I can't think of anything to get through to him. He shows no remorse, ever. All he cares about is how to get what he wants. I have no clue what to do, no clue if he even is a psychopath, no clue if I'm safe. What should I do?